For the last 50 years, everything you've been told about healthy eating might be wrong. I studied people who lived past 100, and their diet was shockingly simple. But here's the scary part. What you're eating every day might be slowly destroying your health. The first key point centers on a pattern that directly challenges modern nutrition advice. People who lived beyond 100 years consistently ate a very small set of foods every single day, often repeating the same meals for decades. This behavior runs opposite to the widely promoted idea that a healthy diet must include constant variety, superfoods, and complex meal planning. In reality, these individuals were not optimizing their diet based on trends or scientific updates. Instead, they relied on simple, familiar, whole foods that their bodies recognized and tolerated well over long periods of time. From a physiological perspective, this consistency appears to create a highly efficient internal system, particularly within the gut microbiome. The human digestive system is adaptive, meaning it responds to repeated dietary patterns by strengthening the populations of bacteria that are best suited to break down those specific foods. When someone eats the same core foods daily, their microbiome becomes specialized, improving nutrient extraction, reducing digestive stress, and minimizing inflammatory responses. In contrast, constantly changing foods forces the gut to repeatedly adjust, which can lead to inefficiencies, imbalances, and low-grade inflammation over time. Another critical factor is metabolic stability. Eating consistent meals helps regulate hormonal responses, particularly insulin, which plays a central role in energy storage and blood sugar control. When food intake is predictable, the body becomes more efficient at processing nutrients, leading to fewer spikes and crashes in blood sugar levels. This stability reduces the long-term risk of metabolic disorders such as insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, conditions that are strongly linked to aging and chronic disease. There is also a behavioral and psychological advantage to simplicity. Decision fatigue is a real cognitive burden in modern life, and constantly thinking about what to eat, how much to eat, and whether a food is healthy creates unnecessary stress. The individuals studied eliminated this burden entirely by defaulting to a routine. This allowed them to conserve mental energy and maintain a stable relationship with food, free from anxiety, guilt, or overanalysis. Importantly, the foods themselves were not random. They were typically nutrient-dense, minimally processed, and derived from natural sources such as animal products and root vegetables. The combination of simplicity and quality created a sustainable system that required no constant adjustments. Over decades, this approach likely contributed to lower cumulative stress on the body, both metabolically and psychologically. This pattern suggests that the human body may not require dietary complexity to thrive, but rather consistency with foods it can efficiently process and utilize. Instead of constantly seeking new dietary strategies, the long-lived individuals demonstrated that repeating a small number of high-quality foods may be one of the most effective ways to support long-term health and functional longevity. The second key point focuses on a major shift in nutritional science that began in the mid-20th century and continues to influence modern dietary habits. During this period, dietary fat, especially saturated fat found in foods like eggs, butter, and red meat, was identified as a primary cause of heart disease. This conclusion was largely driven by early observational studies that appeared to show a correlation between fat intake and cardiovascular risk. However, these conclusions were not as robust or comprehensive as they were presented to the public, and over time they became simplified into a widespread belief that all fats were harmful. As this idea gained traction, public health guidelines began encouraging people to reduce fat consumption. In response, the food industry adapted rapidly by creating low-fat and fat-free products. The problem was that removing fat from food significantly reduced its taste and satiety, so manufacturers compensated by adding refined sugars, artificial flavors, and processed carbohydrates. This led to a dramatic increase in the consumption of highly processed foods that were marketed as healthy, simply because they were low in fat, despite being nutritionally imbalanced. From a metabolic standpoint, this shift had unintended consequences. Refined carbohydrates and added sugars are rapidly digested, causing sharp increases in blood glucose levels. In response, the body releases insulin to manage this spike. Over time, frequent and repeated spikes can lead to a condition known as insulin resistance, where cells become less responsive to insulin signals. This forces the body to produce even more insulin, creating a cycle that contributes to fat storage, chronic inflammation, and eventually metabolic disorders such as type 2 diabetes. In contrast, whole foods that contain natural fats tend to be more satiating and produce a slower, more controlled metabolic response. They provide a steady release of energy and support the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, which are essential for various physiological functions, including immune support, hormone production, and cellular health. By removing these foods from the diet and replacing them with processed alternatives, many people inadvertently reduce their intake of critical nutrients while increasing their exposure to substances that disrupt metabolic balance. Epidemiological trends over the past several decades reflect this shift. As fat consumption decreased in many populations, the intake of sugar and processed carbohydrates increased significantly. During the same period, rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and other chronic diseases rose sharply. While correlation does not prove causation, the consistency of these patterns across multiple populations suggests that the replacement of traditional whole foods with industrially processed products played a significant role. This key point highlights the importance of questioning long-standing dietary assumptions and recognizing that the context in which foods are consumed matters greatly. It is not simply about isolating a single nutrient and labeling it as harmful or beneficial, but about understanding how entire dietary patterns interact with human biology over time. The historical focus on reducing fat without adequately considering what would replace it may have contributed to a cascade of metabolic issues that continue to affect public health today. The third key point revolves around the role of the gut microbiome and how dietary consistency influences its function and stability. The human gut contains trillions of microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, and other microbes, that collectively play a central role in digestion, immune regulation, and metabolic health. These microorganisms are not static. They continuously adapt to the types of foods that are regularly consumed. This means that what a person eats on a consistent basis directly shapes the composition and efficiency of their internal microbial ecosystem. When an individual consumes the same core foods repeatedly over time, the gut microbiome becomes highly specialized in breaking down those specific nutrients. Certain bacterial strains flourish because they are well suited to digest those foods, leading to improved efficiency in nutrient extraction. This specialization reduces the energy cost of digestion and enhances the body's ability to absorb essential vitamins, minerals, and macronutrients. As a result, the digestive system operates in a more stable and predictable manner, with fewer disruptions and less metabolic stress. In contrast, a diet characterized by constant variety, especially when it includes a wide range of processed foods, additives, and unfamiliar ingredients, can create a more chaotic environment in the gut. Each new type of food requires a different set of microbial responses, forcing the microbiome to continually adjust. While some level of diversity can be beneficial, excessive and unpredictable variation may prevent the microbiome from stabilizing. This instability is often associated with a condition known as dysbiosis, where the balance of beneficial and harmful bacteria is disrupted. Dysbiosis has been linked to a range of health issues, including chronic inflammation, impaired digestion, weakened immune function, and increased risk of metabolic disorders. When the gut environment is unstable, it may produce inflammatory byproducts or fail to properly break down certain compounds, leading to gastrointestinal discomfort and systemic effects. Over time, these small disruptions can accumulate, contributing to long-term health decline. Another important aspect is the relationship between the gut microbiome and the body's immune system. A stable and well-adapted microbiome helps regulate immune responses, preventing excessive inflammation while still protecting against harmful pathogens. Consistent dietary patterns support this balance by maintaining a predictable microbial environment. On the other hand, frequent dietary changes can trigger immune fluctuations, as the body reacts to new and unfamiliar compounds entering the digestive system. Energy efficiency is also a key factor. The digestive process itself requires a significant amount of the body's total energy expenditure. When the microbiome is optimized for a consistent diet, this process becomes more efficient, reducing unnecessary energy use and metabolic strain. This efficiency may contribute to better overall vitality and reduced wear on the body's systems over time. This key point emphasizes that the body does not just respond to what is eaten, but also to how consistently it is eaten. By maintaining a stable dietary pattern with familiar whole foods, the gut microbiome can function at a higher level of efficiency and balance. This internal stability supports not only digestion, but also broader aspects of health, including immunity and metabolic regulation, reinforcing the idea that consistency in diet may be as important as the specific foods themselves. The fourth key point highlights a recurring dietary pattern observed among long-lived individuals, centered around four categories of nutrient-dense, minimally processed foods that consistently appeared in their daily routines. These foods were not selected based on trends or modern dietary frameworks, but rather reflected traditional eating habits that provided a broad spectrum of essential nutrients in their most bioavailable forms. The first category includes high-quality animal protein with its natural fat intact, particularly foods like eggs and unprocessed meats. These foods offer complete proteins containing all essential amino acids required for tissue repair, enzyme production, and overall cellular function. The fat component, often removed or minimized in modern diets, carries fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, E, and K2, which are critical for immune health, bone strength, and proper hormonal signaling. Additionally, compounds like choline found in egg yolks play a fundamental role in brain function, liver health, and cell membrane integrity. The second category consists of root and tuber vegetables, such as potatoes and sweet potatoes, which serve as a stable source of unprocessed carbohydrates. Unlike refined grains, these foods digest more slowly and provide a steady release of glucose, supporting balanced energy levels and reducing the likelihood of sharp insulin spikes. They are also rich in essential minerals, particularly potassium, which is vital for maintaining fluid balance, regulating blood pressure, and supporting proper muscle and nerve function. The fiber content in these vegetables further contributes to digestive health by feeding beneficial gut bacteria and promoting regular bowel function. The third category involves real, full-fat dairy products, including whole milk, butter, and aged cheeses. These foods, when minimally processed, provide a combination of fats, proteins, and micronutrients that work synergistically within the body. Full-fat dairy contains naturally occurring compounds that may support metabolic health and provide sustained satiety, helping to regulate appetite and reduce overeating. The presence of fat also enhances the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, making these nutrients more accessible to the body compared to low-fat alternatives that often lack this functional benefit. The fourth category includes nutrient-dense components that are often overlooked in modern diets, such as organ meats, bone broth, and connective tissues. These foods are exceptionally rich in vitamins and minerals that are less abundant in standard muscle meats. For example, organ meats like liver provide high concentrations of vitamin B12, iron, folate, and other cofactors essential for energy production and red blood cell formation. Bone broth contributes collagen, gelatin, and amino acids that support joint health, skin integrity, and gut lining function. These elements were traditionally consumed as part of a whole animal approach to eating, ensuring that no nutritional resource was wasted. Together, these four categories form a dietary pattern that emphasizes nutrient density, bioavailability, and metabolic compatibility. Rather than relying on fortified foods or supplements to fill nutritional gaps, this approach delivers essential compounds directly through whole food sources in forms that the body can efficiently recognize and utilize. The repetition of these foods over time likely contributed to a stable internal environment, supporting long-term health and resilience without the need for constant dietary adjustments or external interventions. The fifth key point shifts the focus beyond nutrition and highlights a set of non-dietary factors that appear to play a critical role in long-term health and longevity. While food provides the biological foundation for survival, the evidence observed in long-lived individuals suggests that psychological and social elements are equally influential in determining how well and how long a person lives. Among these factors, a strong sense of purpose consistently emerges as one of the most powerful predictors of sustained health. Individuals who live with a clear reason to wake up each day tend to maintain higher levels of physical activity, mental engagement, and emotional resilience. This sense of direction influences behavior in subtle but meaningful ways, encouraging consistency, discipline, and a forward-looking mindset that supports overall well-being. From a biological perspective, purpose is not just an abstract concept, it has measurable effects on the body's internal systems. When a person feels engaged and needed, their stress response tends to remain balanced, preventing the chronic elevation of stress hormones such as cortisol. In contrast, a lack of purpose or prolonged psychological distress can lead to sustained cortisol release, which over time contributes to muscle breakdown, impaired immune function, disrupted sleep patterns, and increased inflammation. These effects accelerate many of the processes associated with aging and chronic disease, demonstrating that mental and emotional states directly influence physical health outcomes. Equally important is the presence of strong social connections. Human beings are inherently social, and the quality of interpersonal relationships has a profound impact on physiological stability. Consistent interaction with trusted individuals provides emotional support, reduces stress, and creates a sense of belonging that reinforces psychological security. Studies have shown that social isolation is associated with significantly higher mortality risk, comparable to well-known physical risk factors. This is partly because loneliness triggers the body's threat response, activating inflammatory pathways and placing continuous strain on the cardiovascular and immune systems. Another critical aspect observed in long-lived individuals is their ability to manage and release negative emotional burdens, particularly long-standing resentment or anger. Holding on to these emotions keeps the nervous system in a prolonged state of alertness, which perpetuates stress hormone production and interferes with recovery processes such as deep sleep and cellular repair. Over time, this internal tension can contribute to hypertension, metabolic imbalance, and weakened immune defenses. In contrast, individuals who develop the capacity to let go of past grievances reduce this physiological burden, allowing their bodies to operate in a more restorative and balanced state. This key point underscores that health cannot be fully understood or achieved through diet alone. Even the most optimal nutritional strategy cannot compensate for chronic psychological stress, social disconnection, or a lack of meaning in daily life. The integration of purpose, meaningful relationships, and emotional regulation creates a biological environment that supports longevity at a foundational level. These factors work in conjunction with physical health practices, reinforcing the idea that long-term well-being is the result of both internal biochemical balance and external life satisfaction, each influencing the other in a continuous and interconnected manner.